Welcome to the Trill MBA Show. I'm your host, Felicia Ann Rose Anuha, aka the Trillest MBA you will ever know. And I'm here to help you survive and thrive in corporate America by giving you the truth and being as real as only I can be. Happy Sunday, everybody. I am so excited because I have a very special guest today who you should know. She is the only person that has had a takeover show of the Trill MBA Show. She is my resident corporate wellness expert, and I have her back, Erayna Sargent. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's always a wonderful day when I'm on the Trill MBA Show. So thank you again for having me, Fee.
Listen, first of all, let me tell you, I'm so proud of you. I cannot believe when you called me and was like, hey, Hooky Day is coming. And I was like, wait, what? And you're like, yeah, it's been a year. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So you have been now officially a full-time entrepreneur for a little over a year now.
Almost a year. Yeah. I left corporate America and tech in November of last year.
Okay.
So give me these couple of weeks because I'm dealing with my own imposter syndrome and realizing that a whole year has gone by. But it's full of a lot of amazing wins, and I'm excited to be able to be in the space to recognize like the progress. So thank you for being on this journey with me, Fee. I appreciate the support. And girl, you know I need it. So you've been that cheerleader, and I appreciate you every step of the way.
Listen, we have to do this for each other. So caveat, you guys, a little bit about Erayna and I. We knew each other in Grand Rapids when I was working in Grand Rapids. And it's before we went to business school. And then we saw each other on the Chitlin circuit of B schools. That's what I call it.
It was.
And so when you go to
the Chitlin circuit,
it is. It's all the diversity weekends to introduce diverse candidates to MBA programs. And so we did that. And then we ended up at Indiana University together. So we are B school classmates, and we have been friends ever since. And Erayna got super lucky. Well, I feel like Joe is the lucky one. But one of our other classmates, she met while moving into her apartment. And now they've been married for how many years now?
7.
7 years now. But they met that faithful move-in weekend.
You're so funny.
And so, we have our class love story. So I'm all down for that. But I'm super excited because after all these years of the corporate grind and hustle, you have gone through a lot, right? And now you have come to a point where your work and your purpose and your passion is all coming together. And I want you first to start out and talk about how you got to this point in the last couple of years. Like, what happened for you to be like, you know what? For good, bad, or different, I'm going to go for this.
That's real, because that was not an easy decision. So a quick recap of what is my life and where in the world is Erayna Sargent, as my niece would say it. But so I started my career in office furniture, which is very as sexy as you would expect. Mm-hmm. But I had chosen to stay in Grand Rapids for a couple of years. That experience gave me some real insight into the world of business and marketing. And that was the start of me figuring out what I wanted to do. Because I had a degree in marketing and management, minors in advertising and PR. But when it came to finding a job, that meant nothing. And so this job opportunity came to me, and I pursued it. After 2 years of that, I was like, all right, I want to move over to B2C. So I went back to get the MBA, which is where we crossed paths again. Mm-hmm. And after that is when I moved into B2C or business to consumer. I moved into, I'm going to use all the acronyms.
Yeah, use all the acronyms.
Throw another one out there. But that's when I moved into CPG or consumer packaged goods and worked at Nestle for 5 years and some of the biggest brands. And everything was good. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun building brands. And I was making pizza and going to restaurants for research. So right up my alley. And then personally, as my husband and I got married and like our dual household careers, we had to make some tough decisions. So part of our move to Chicago, I started to change my path and decided to explore some different avenues for business. Fast forward, over the course of the past 4 years, I've had experience moving from Nestle to a mid-sized spice company to an early stage premium food company to a couple years in tech. Through that experience, I had my first and second experiences with burnout, initially caused by a toxic work environment, followed by a misalignment of values and what I really wanted to do with my time. And I had to figure out how to, in a sense, fix myself. And so being a Black woman, growing up in the Midwest with a family that doesn't talk about mental health, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I fumbled my way through it. I knew about like the idea of therapist. So I started to look for it, but I had all the pains that everybody else had and made me mad of like not calling you back or like calling you back. I had this one call me back and was like, I'm not taking new patients, so good luck. Like, she didn't say with that attitude, of course. Like, she was trying to be nice, but that's how I heard it because it did not matter.
Right.
I've had experiences where I've like had a therapist and like she was in a co-working space and I got there early and I had to sit on the floor in the hallway because there was nowhere else to wait. But ultimately through that experience and like the personal stuff I was going through, I was like, something's not right. And like, I don't know how to fix it. So that caused me to basically take a step back and to really assess what was going on. But like I was doing what most people do when they deal with burnout, which is you work harder. Like I know how to work. That's what I do. Like Detroit conditioned me and the Gambles raised me. Like my family knows how to work. And so that is what I did. And so when it came to a matter of things not aligning or me feeling off, I was like, well, maybe if I just work harder. So that my work harder and like to capitalize on these opportunities in front of me turned into me working at all hours of the day and night and not knowing how to disconnect and not knowing how to stop and not realizing when someone is starting to suffer from burnout in those early stages and you start working more, that is the last thing you need to do because you're less efficient and productive with your time. And so through this journey, it was a lot of introspection, a lot of understanding. I created my own little burnout battle team, I call it, like my therapist, my coach, my supporters and community, and a wellness practitioner. And I created this team, and that's what I've been digging into over the past few months because burnout is trash. No one wants to stay in that point, and I was determined to get to the other side of it. So I'm excited. The last couple months have been very insightful, introspective. Like with everything happening in the world, you have no choice but to go inside and figure out what's going on. And so it was what I really needed to start to get through those last couple hurdles. And anyone who deals in mental health and works with mental health, mental health is an ongoing thing. It always exists, but there are ways that you can get into the core issues or some of the core things holding you up that unlock so much growth and opportunity for you. And so when it comes to burnout and getting to that recovery, I'm really focused on helping people get to the other side of it and navigate it because burnout is not going to go away. Like it's only getting worse. Everyone's burned out. Already before 77% of the workforce was burned out. And now with over 65% of the people working from home, working longer hours, and you're hearing there's 3 times as much reported poor mental health, like burnout's not going anywhere. So I am excited to equip the community and equip the workforce to figure out how to navigate within it, how to stop finding those symptoms and signs within themselves, and to know how to bring that balance back. So that was a long-winded way of saying I went through burnout, I learned my lessons, and I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make sure no one has to feel as bad as I did.
Whoa, listen, that MBA recap right there at the end, listen, that was perfect. So listen, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to probe a little bit around how you thought through who you were going to pick to build out that burnout team. So I want you to walk my listeners through how to think about how to build this team for yourself. And actually, I'm actually asking for myself. But listeners, I love y'all. But when we get back from break, we're going to dig into that. So stay tuned. So do you need help with a work dilemma, but you ain't got $40, so you can't schedule a coaching call? Well, I'll make a deal with you. If you agree to do a coaching call that I can air on the show, then you get a free coaching call. So hit me up at ask@trillinba.com And if you are open to having your issue be known to the internet, but you get some great advice and some great information, then email me at ask@trillinba.com and we'll talk. And if I feel that your situation is very similar to a lot of ours and that everyone would benefit from learning what to do in your particular situation, then I will have you on the show. We can also disguise your voice so you can be anonymous. So there's that too. So hit me up, let me know, and let's get back to the show. And we are back. And today we have our special guest, Erayna Sargent, the CEO and founder of Hooky Wellness. And we are actually here to talk about the second annual Hooky Day. But before we do that, Erayna dropped a huge nugget in the last segment, and I want to dig into it because she talked about building her wellness team. And I was like, wait, what? But Erayna, before we get back into your wellness team, did you see this tweet from a woman named Gloria Alamaru? Sorry if I screwed up your name. Her Twitter name is Injeta Mommy, which leads me to think she's Ethiopian because I love me some Ethiopian food. I love some injera.
I could go for that right now.
Listen.
It makes me hungry.
But she had this tweet like 4 days ago, and I think it was prompted from Kamala Harris's debate performance and, you know, all the things people are talking about we have to deal with as Black women in corporate America. But her tweet says, "My therapist said something in our last session that I can't get out of my head. Black women don't often recognize that they're struggling with depression or anxiety. Instead, they think they're failing."
Yeah, that's real.
That hit different, right? Like,
yeah.
How many times have you felt like I'm failing when actually your anxiety was just on 1 million?
Well, yeah, those often go hand in hand. Yeah, when I saw that tweet, that one really stuck with me. I had to take a screen grab and put it in my photo album to make sure I keep a look at it. When it comes to like mental health and anxiety and depression, like especially in the Black community, especially for Black women, that is not something we were introduced to like younger. It was not a part of the vernacular. It's not a part of the community. Because when you think about it, we're told as a Black woman, you are basically a superhero. And they still going with that crazy rhetoric today. Like, we are human. We need to break too. But as a Black woman, we believe that we are superhuman. Anything anyone else can do, I could do it better. I just work harder. I put my head down and I grind because Black women can do anything. Black women are resilient. Black women are the backbone of their families and backbone of this country and keep saving people every 5 minutes. And but no one ever talks about how heavy that gets. Or let me rephrase that, because people are talking about it now, which is what excites me, is that we're feeling less alone.
Yeah.
But anxiety, depression is nothing to be ashamed of. Like, it's really nothing. It's especially if you're like doing the work to start to go in and understand the why, because often those are driven by misconceptions of what we need to be achieving, or the misalignment of expectations and reality. And very similar to burnout, like that misalignment of expectations to reality can be caused by two different paths. One is what society tells you, and one is what you tell yourself. And so when you start to get in that space, what I found was powerful is when I got into spaces where either I was avoiding taking some action or avoiding some conversation or avoiding some work where I just wasn't myself, I had to start taking a step back and be like, what is this? Like, what is driving it? What else am I feeling? What am I starting to think about? What causes my body to tense up? So what becomes clear is that it is a real full body impact that starts to happen, but it takes often for Black women to see themselves not achieving at their own expectations or standards to realize something is wrong, because we're so conditioned to ignore everything else, including our own feelings.
Oh, girl.
I mean, it resonated.
Because you struggle, right? And that's one thing that I want to teach people with this show is that, hey, we have to figure out for each of ourselves what the balance is. And there was a really good show that I recorded, and because of the situations, I cannot leave it up. But one of my friends was on the show, and she basically said, hey, I never give these companies the 100% or 150% that I can give, because my 80% to them is 150%. And so I need that 20% of my energy to go back into feeding myself and taking care of myself so that I can give them the 80% that they will perceive as the 150.
That's real. What's really interesting about saying it that way, it caused something to spark in my mind to think about it or to say it in a different way. Because what we often talk about is, all right, you give a company 100% or you give them 150%. And that's a very dangerous thing to do, especially for those that have a very fine line between work and home, or their personal identity and their career. And so when that starts to dissolve, we think about it as, we start to say, oh, I'm giving 100% to this job, but we forget you only have 100% to give to everything.
Right.
And so as we're talking about, I'm only going to give them 80%. Like, no, of your entire bandwidth, they should only get 80%. And sometimes they might get 40, depending upon what you're working on. It should flex and it should ebb and flow. And especially in this day and age, when it comes to COVID and the disruption of every single routine that you have had and established in your life, you need to use more of your bandwidth to just do the common task, to just figure out how your kid is going to school if you have that, or to figure out what is your new meal routine. As simple as that. Like, if you had a meal routine where it was like, I make my breakfast, I'm out the door, I take 20 minutes to commute, I get to the office, I grab a coffee, I get to my desk, I start my meetings, I have lunch at this place, and then I go back and finish my meetings, and I go home, and then I cook dinner or I go out. All of that's disrupted. And so what seems like simple things were, because they were routine, it would only take about 2% of your bandwidth. But now you're creating entire routines over from scratch, and you now need 15% just to figure out what you're eating, how you're eating, and when you're eating it, and to prepare it. So I love how you talked about it and how your friend teased it up, and it's just like opening my mind to think about it. As a person, you have 100%. So how can you believe that you're giving 100% of your bandwidth, energy, and effort to just the job? How are you going to stand? How are you going to live? How are you going to breathe? That's how we're getting into these situations. I think we're looking at these equations wrong, or these ratios, you know?
Oh, that is a word.
Thank you. I never thought about it that way.
I know, right? Like, I think we are built with this expectation to give above and beyond.
Yeah. Well, Black people, you got to work 2 times as hard.
Right. And so that you're basically telling yourself somehow you've got to come up with your 100% that you were born with, and somehow another 100%. And that's going to get you what their 50% gets them. And that somehow we've got to do that. And then you wonder why we are suffering. It's so funny. I think these last few years have culminated in 400 years of Black women suffering in silence. And now we're just like, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done for the ancestors. We're done for the future children. We're done. Like, we are done with this shit. And I think about when you look at people like a Michelle Obama, and you like really think about, after you read her story and you really think about like what her days were like, to read all these nasty, negative things about yourself, even if you try to shield yourself from it, you can't do that 100% of the time. And you're taking all of that in, the mistreatment of people, the side eyes, the looks, the sizing up, the vitriol that you have to then somehow still show up with grace, which takes even more energy, right? Can you imagine the mental Olympics that she went through to bite her tongue every day? Now, we do this in corporate, and we're talking about hour-long meetings. This is her morning, her day, her evening into the night, because there are events all the time. There's people all around all the time. And it's never like, when do you get to just exist in peace? And to me, that's like the ultimate. But then the expectation is for her to show up how she showed up every day. That's exhausting.
It is. I think that's the challenge of pioneers, though. I think that often happens in environments where they're not used to seeing people like us or familiar. And but often when you're walking into it, if you pay attention, you know what that uphill battle is. Like, I've been in plenty of environments where I'm the only one. I'm used to it. I'm just now at the point where I'm tired of it.
Right.
But when I would go into my workplaces or my schools where I was one of 5 or one of 3 in the office of 1,100, like, I knew the uphill battle, and I'm by no means comparing myself to Michelle Obama. I would never want that stage. Like, right. I'm not running for elected office because that's a whole other game. But
no, ma'am.
What I would say is her family gave her such a solid foundation of self and self-awareness that allowed her to navigate in these spaces. And so I get excited about seeing illustrations and examples in the world like this, because that is our power. When we're able to harness and understand what unique value we bring into this world, what we want to do with it, how we can apply it, and how, especially when we can monetize it, like, that is what is powerful. And being able to quickly recognize when things have changed and maybe something is no longer for you and it's time for you to leave that job or leave that relationship or leave that city and move on to the next and be just as successful as you were, or be able to cope and manage if you need to start at the bottom and start up again. Like, life is all about changes. That's never going to go away. Life is all about stress. That's never going to go away. What happens is your ability to navigate. What happens is your ability to manage. What happens is your ability to figure out what you want to create for yourself and go out and build it. And so I'm excited to start to really do this work in the mental wellness space. And like, I'm really focused on bringing this personal development with mental health and meshing it together, because it's a lot about doing the introspective work to understand who you are, to understand those assumptions that are built into you, to understand those preconceived notions of what you should be doing or who you should be talking to or what you should look like, and everything about us. We all have it. And then to blend it up and mix it up with, all right, well, let's build a future plan that looks better for you, that actually matches what you want, the people you want to work with, the impact you want to have. So I'm really excited for this space because the market is really asking for it. Like, as upsetting and disruptive as burnout is, what I will say I'm thankful for is that it shook me, because if I was not even happy, like, there were things where I was happy in my job. Like, if I was fine, I'd still be there. But it caused that, often the disruption and that severe disruption that shakes you, it's telling you it's time to go. And so it's very important for you to listen, you know?
Oh, that's a word. Let's dig into, how did so you recognized that you needed to do that for yourself, but then you talked about in the last segment, building this like dream team of wellness. That's what I'm going to call it. How many people are on this team, and what do they do? How do they help?
Yeah, so this is the Burnout Battle Team. I came up with this because I realized I kept calling the same people all the time.
Okay.
But no, burnout, even though it feels like it's an individual problem, it's truly part of a systematic and collective issue. And it's one of the most important things that you cannot get out of it by yourself. Like, no matter how much, you need those people who can push and hold up a mirror, or those people who can comfort you and help you balance, and those people who are just better than you at certain things. And so for me, even though I didn't know mental health, I understood therapy was something that was important. And I don't care. Like, I've never really dealt with the shame. Like, I just didn't understand it.
Right.
We all got a life. We all have family. We all have conversations. So we all need to go talk to someone who actually understands what you're talking about and can help guide you, because your friend down there, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Because maybe that's why I was always open to therapy, because I've seen enough advice situations either go wrong or people coming to me and I'm like, I can't help you, but I can help you find someone who can.
Right.
And so for me, therapist was the number one. And so I go bi-weekly. At some points I go weekly. It depends on the conversation. And then depending upon where we are and what we're trying to figure out, I might take a break every so often. So for me, my therapist was really important when it came to burnout recovery, because I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't have a vocabulary. I didn't understand how to feel. Like, I was suppressing a lot. I wouldn't allow myself to feel what I was feeling. which got stuck in my body. And I all of a sudden had back pains, and all of a sudden GI issues, and all of a sudden this and that. And so then comes in wellness. I really started getting into yoga right before my first burnout. So I found my mat as a peaceful place. Honestly, it's my excuse to just get into Savasana. So if I need to go to a power class, to just lay on my mat for a couple of minutes.
Right. So
that's where the wellness came in. And it really just helps to loosen up those muscles, because trauma can get stuck in the body, whether it's workplace trauma or other overall stress and chronic stress. It gets stuck in your muscles. And so there's a really good book I recommend, The Body Keeps the Score, that truly talks about how trauma can get trapped in your muscles and trapped in your body, and how it can be the manifestation of stress and like chronic illness. So that's really interesting. So wellness was another one. Coach is a big one, because I'm very much future forward. I'm a big thinker. I'm always trying to build something,
Right.
And so I had all this energy and introspection, and I'm understanding, all right, if this is what I care about, this is what I don't like, this is what I want to be, this is why I have these thoughts. And, oh yeah, the limits are really only what I put on my mind. What do I want to do with it? And so my coach actually is a past coworker that is now a coach, and she helps me build for tomorrow. And so I'm very much like a brain dump, and she helps me organize it in a more structured way. So that is really important to me, because this transition has been all about impact. And so I want to figure out, where do I put all this energy? Where do I put all this focus? Where do I put this renewed vibrancy that I have for life and making impact? And so a coach is a huge part of the team. Mm-hmm. And then the last piece is a mix of community. So however I found it, so whether it be friends or my spouse or those people who come in your life at the right moment, like there are different conversations you have with different people. So whether it be additional perspective on something I'm dealing with, whether it be to pass me along to different tools and resources. There's cheerleaders that come into play when it comes to your community. And then there's friends like you, which help you adjust your language and break those negative talk habits and just call you out. So community is key. So therapist, a coach, a community, and a wellness practitioner of any wellness modality that is of interest. So modalities being anything from mindfulness, whether that be meditation, from movement, that could be yoga or Pilates. There's also a lot of research, and I'm really excited to now be on the mental wellness initiative at the Global Wellness Institute, where we're studying the different wellness modalities, inclusive of things as far as laughter, as to helping with things like anxiety, depression, or sunlight, or to be in green spaces. And so I'm really excited about this learning and to bring these unique ways of wellness into life. And then last, the most important person on your burnout battle team, honestly, is you. You have to be committed to change. You have to be committed to being open to learning things that you've been suppressing or ignoring a lot of your life. And so that partnership with your therapist, that was really what can help you push through. But if you're not committed to making the change, if you're not putting in the work, if you're not following through on the advice that you're getting from all these people, if you're not willing to leave that job and build another path, or if you're not willing to take a break and really just sit in your thoughts and figure out what the hell is going on, then it's all for naught. So don't even build a team if you're not going to be on it. It's funny, I said that so strongly, but it's very real. Like there are times where I realized I wasn't even on my own team. And I have my therapist and coach in my community, and everybody's spinning out of control, and there to like answer calls and to answer questions, to give me perspective and to listen when I need to vent or need to process. But if I wasn't doing my part, that's like the biggest waste of everybody's time. And so if you're not in that space, if you're not ready, you can give yourself that grace to say, you know what, this is about to be a lot. Let me gather my thoughts, gather myself, and build up this courage, and then start to asking people for their time. Do not ask people for their time, energy, and effort unless you are either ready to waste dollars and to waste mental energy. Like your therapist and coach, you could pay them and they'll be all right. They'll show up every day. But if you're tapping into your personal community and you're asking people to listen to you vent, or to like give you perspective or give you advice or point you to resources, and then you do not use it, then are you really focused on recovery? Are you really focused on making change? And I say that, but it's okay if you say not now. It's all right. But how long are you going to be there? And if you are going to stay there, just don't complain about it to the same people over and over again, you know?
Thank you for that, because I think we need to hear that. We need that type of accountability. And that's what That's what we are about. And as Black women, we need to hold ourselves to our standard, right? And not that we need to hold ourselves to some respectability politics shit, but like just to be our best for ourselves, for each other. That's it. And I think that's all you're, telling people. And if you're not ready, that's okay. Just don't come around here with your mouth. Like, we're not going to hear it. It's like that same thing with that girlfriend that keeps going back to that dude that ain't no good. And then she keep crying, talking about what he done to her now. And then after a while, it's like, nigga, I told you, just let him go. Dang. Like, I don't want to hear it no more. Like, that's fair. That's fair. Like, because there's nothing I can do. And I'm not going to enable you any longer. And that's a real friend.
That's the kind of friend I want.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of friend everybody wants.
True.
And it's funny because my best friend and I just had a conversation about this of like, just looking back and being like the types of friendships, and like she and I have those type of conversations. What I've started to do with really close friends, especially, is to be like, make sure you give the space for them to have a different opinion, and like to be okay with staying where they are as long as it's safe. Like, I have had friends over time where you'd be like, all right, you're in this situation, and they come to you and they come to you and they come to you. And like, I had to get to a point where it was I think it's actually a matter of me creating boundaries of being like, I don't know how to support you as a friend because you have said X, but you keep doing Y. I just need you to tell me what you really want to do, and I will support you there. Like, if you want to do Y, if you're comfortable with Y because the circumstances and situations are not set up for you to go to X, or you decided to change your mind, you have every right. This is your life. But like, allow your people to be friends and to be supportive of you, and like to not spin their wheels, because then that breaks up a lot of friendships as well. Because if person A come to you and it's like asking for advice or complaining about something, you keep giving and banging your head against the wall and never change, like you get frustrated. Mm-hmm. But if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, even in our weakest points, or even in those decisions that you may not be that proud of, like, your friends will still be there. They'll support you. Like, let's be real. We don't have no time to fake it anymore. Like, let's just be real. We have to maintain our mental space, our mental capacity. We need to give each other space to fuck up every so often and be all right. You need to give yourself space to fuck up and be all right with it, and then brush yourself off and keep it moving. Like, you can only move forward,
Yes. I hope this is resonating with at least just one person out there. Listen, you guys, if this is resonating with you, send me a note. Send us a note. ask@trillingba.com. We want to hear from you, because the reason why I always try to have some shows that focus on mental wellness is because of the 3 pillars of this show. So on this show, we focus on mindset, tactics, and resources, right? So this show is about the mindset you need to work to cultivate, because you cannot rise the ranks in corporate if you are not well. And there's only so far you're going to go or get if you don't stop and take care of yourself. And so after the break, we're going to come back, and I'm going to ask Erayna to tell us all about Hooky Day, right? And why it's important for us to focus on ourselves when we come back. Hey, how big is your network? Are we connected? You listen to the show. You know I know a lot of people. So why haven't I seen you on the internet? Here are a couple things you can do to plug into the Trill NBA network. 1, you can head on over to LinkedIn and follow us on our page @TrillNBA Show on all social. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Go on over there and connect with me. Say hi, at me, talk to me. I want to hear from you. What are you going through? How can I help? Right? You can always email me at ask@trillnba.com. You can always go to trillnba.com, sign up for our freebies. We're always adding new guides and tips and tricks and tactics and videos to help you through this thing called corporate workplace life. Whew, it's a lot, I know. So Connect with me. Let me know how I can help you. Let's get these promotions, ladies. Listen, I want you to get more coins, and I want you to help the next crop of women behind you, okay? So let's get it. And if you need anything, hit me up, okay? At Trill NBA Show. Everywhere on the internet. Now, let's get back to the show. And we are back. We're about to wrap up real quick. I done took up a bunch of Erayna's time, especially us talking in between the breaks.
Never.
We go way back, so you my nigga. So listen. So this last segment is all about the most important thing. The most important thing. And so for me, the biggest thing I just got from this show is, for me, a bit of a reminder, but I think as I struggle through my own wellness journey, it's being consistent about having that team of people. I think that having that team of people will drive that consistency. And like for me, my biggest challenge between my mental health and my physical health are my biggest challenges. And I make no secrets about it. I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and also with suicidal ideations. And in the past, I have had failed suicide attempts. I don't hide that. That's my truth. I have had many different types of treatments. I struggle. And a lot of it has to do with, trying to fit this expectation, especially when it comes to corporate, right? And then just feeling like I'm failing and falling on my face all the time and not knowing how to fix it and not feeling like I can ask for help and feeling like I'm in it by myself and feeling all these things, all the reasons why I started this podcast. And this has been my outlet. It's allowed me to have something to look forward to, have something where I'm actually helping people, have something where I can vent and talk about the bullshit and like be honest about it and not play those stupid games I have to play during the daytime. I don't have to worry about managing white people's feelings with this podcast, because guess what? White people, this podcast is not necessarily for you. It may help you, which you email me and tell me, and I appreciate you listening. Don't get me wrong. But it's centered around Black women, which is something that we have very few spaces in the world that's centered around us. And I get to create that. And that makes me feel hopeful. And, it counterbalances all the things that the little voice in my head that wants to be depressed and anxious tells me. And I have like a proof point in the world that like, oh no, bitch, you gotta stay here. You got shit to do. And so we need to remind ourselves to take care of ourselves. And sometimes it's just hard, but the work is worth it on the other side. And so that's the biggest lesson I've got. And just seeing you as a testimony of that. Like you're talking about, I burnt out in corporate twice.
That is real. I had 2 episodes of burnout. I say 2, though it was one very long one because I never fixed it in the first place,
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's still causing me to have that experience. And what I realized, I'm starting to play with some different language, because what I do not want to do is to fully internalize it, because burnout is an experience. It is a situation. It is a temporary situation.
Right.
It is not an identity. And so I think that the challenge right now is that in the space of burnout, people internalize it. And the same with actually all mental health. If people say, oh, you are basically saying, or not you, Felicia. Mm-hmm. But people are saying like, oh, I am this one situation at all times. And so while my experience is I have had a burnout episode, I am also like the 77% of the workforce that has had it on an annual basis.
Right.
Or the 85% of millennials that are reporting being burnt out on an annual basis, regardless if they like their job. burnout is a temporary situation that happens because of the circumstances you are dealing with. And it is often caused by a misalignment in expectations of reality. It could be because of the demands and the additional workload. It could become of the misalignment in your role and expectations. It could be a changing of your value system. None of that equals you being a failure. And so, honestly, the biggest part of my burnout journey came with me fully internalizing what I perceived this to mean when I quote unquote failed. But as I realize it now on this side of it, I'm like, I didn't fail. I didn't want to do that shit. Like
right.
The first job that I started to have the burnout experience, like how I knew I had to change was after 2.5 months of taking on responsibility that was for a team of at least 8 to 10. And I was trying to do all the shit myself because it was being passed down to me. As we all know, the shit rolls downhill. And what initially was framed up or looked like this great opportunity to become a C-suite in a startup was very clearly not the path. And after 2.5 months of like overworking myself and going into work from 7 to 7 and not having lunch or not having anything, and then open up my laptop again until midnight and kept doing that shit, like, no, just no. So I had to realize it because one day my husband and I were working at the island in our kitchen, and I just started crying. I was like, this ain't me. This isn't me. This is uncomfortable. I don't like what's happening. I don't even know at that point. I didn't even know health-wise what was happening, but like I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I didn't want to talk to people. So full-on anxiety and depression. And like my voice, I always have a fast pace, but like it was this time too at all times. And that was only a glimmer at what was going on in my brain. And so when it comes to the mental health spaces, one is giving us the space to be like, yes, this is a condition that I have or a situation or a syndrome. It is not your identity. And then also the other big thing that we often overlook that's been really insightful for me as I work in the spaces, it's weird because we will have a very fine line between personal identity and career, but for some reason we think that our mental health in our workplace and our personal lives are separate. And so what's interesting as I started to dig in is understanding that attachment, like the first 1,000 days of your life are some of the most foundational days of your life and can have a ripple effect across your entire lifespan. And so what's an interesting space that I'm excited to have a lot more conversations and do more research in myself is around this idea of attachment theory, which really talks about your style and social dynamics in like your household and how we bring those into the workforce. And it changes with our dynamics and engaging with other team members, our leadership behaviors and traits, as well as just how we work on teams and how we see our roles in org. So I think what's exciting about having these conversations is we're starting to uncover this information that's been out there, but it's not been approachable, honestly. Like, I read white papers because I need to for research, but like, I wasn't doing this before, but there's so much information out there that can help us understand ourselves. And I appreciate you always being so transparent and open because so many people are dealing with the same stuff and they won't talk about it and they feel so alone and they feel like it's all for naught. But you've been such a walking testimony at like, brush your shoulders off, keep finding what's new, keep doing the work, keep building your community and they'll take care of you. We all in this together and I'm excited for us to act like it, you know?
Yeah, Gosh, I'm so excited to watch your journey because like I just literally got goosebumps and I'm like trying not to cry. Because you hit on a lot there and I realized like there is a lot tied to how we're raised that really hinders us in the workplace. And like one of the biggest examples that I give people is that we're taught at home, you know, when we're going off to school, you know, put your head down and do your work and your work will speak for itself. And that doesn't work in corporate.
Not at all. That was never the game.
No. And so.
But that's the game we were taught. Like,
right. And maybe in our parents' generation when, you know, affirmative action started and they really weren't trying to consider us anyway, the only real thing you had to talk for you was your work. And so in some spaces and in some ways that seemed to work. But as I'm looking at my colleagues and peers now, there's so many examples I see of Black women like literally killing themselves, putting in all these hours early in the morning, late at night, and they're rewarded a little bit. And it's a little bit. And so then there's this idea, well, it takes more. I have to do more. I have to give more in order to get further along. And actually, not only are you killing yourself in doing that, you're really only going to get so far because you spend all your time doing all that work. You're not building relationships and you're not playing the game optimally. Right. And so I just want to teach people to think about it all differently. And I never really tied it so much to, hey, let me also ask my coaching clients, like, hey, tell me how you grew up. But now that you said that, I'm going to start digging into that to try to connect dots for them more, even more, into how to shift their perception on how they tackle their work and building relationships so that they can continue to rise in corporate. I think that is so key, like nuggets. I want people to pay me for this episode, but that's okay.
It's so funny.
You get this for free,
very
people.
Important. I just want to say something just for you to be aware of. And for anyone else that is a coach and is taking these nuggets and looking to employ them, be very, very careful playing there. There is a fine line between coaching and mental health, and we all need to collectively respect that line. As someone who has had a lot of coaching clients, both informally and formally, you can very often go down that slippery slope, especially if you are in a space where especially if you have the ability to create a space for vulnerability. And so it is, go into that with caution. And what I do with my clients and what I would recommend for coaches to do with their clients, if you want to, if that stuff starts coming up, is for me, and I think I'm going to declare this from now on, anyone I coach one-on-one needs to be in therapy. And
no, that's a rule for me. Like, I'm not going to help you with your work stuff once I see that if I see like 95, 75, 50%, like if I see the majority of your issues is you and you don't have a therapist, I can't help you. Because if you are sitting there, like, I know I've had some clients call me and they're super defensive and they're super angry and there's all these things that they can't even hear me. And what I'm telling them, like, hey, it sounds like your boss is saying this, so here's how you should approach it. And they're like, well, I don't know why I have to approach it that way. That's not my fault. This ain't fair. Da-da-da. I'm like, okay, pause. You're not ready for me. You need therapy. Do you have a therapist? Because if you don't, I'm not fucking with you. Like, I've had to do that because you have to be in the right mental space to take this challenge on called corporate America.
Yeah. It's a matter of self-awareness and introspection, really, to guard yourself and protect yourself. Yeah. So if that's awesome. I do this personally, and I have my clients, it's like something comes up that we shouldn't dig into in coaching. I put it in the parking lot and use it as my notes to go into therapy. Yeah. So I like tag team it. I will often have my coaching session in the morning and a therapy session in the afternoon and be like, ooh, I'm ready. All these things came up and I don't know why I can't move forward in my business. Right. But it's really interesting. Like there's so much depth and so much tide. Like being very transparent, I had some insights that came to me like in the past couple of months that was like truly what was inhibiting me from just owning the mic and owning my space and doing what I'm supposed to do and like taking this vision and making it real. And there were situations in my past and like being a teenager or early 20s that I reflected on and was like, for someone that has been, for other people to perceive me as quote unquote so strong and so resilient and so like gung ho and all this stuff, you'd be like, yeah, I sort of believe it, but couldn't fully internalize it. Mm-hmm. I realized it was because of some stuff that had happened to me in the past. Little T trauma, not big T trauma, mm-hmm. but paper cuts that I didn't think about, but I had internalized. Mm-hmm. And so because of my perception of what a strong person or what these things people were telling me I was, what my perception of a person like that and how they should behave, that person would have never allowed that shit to happen to them. And so that simple thing in my mind, actually it's not simple, But that thing in my mind and me recognizing, oh, because X, Y, and Z happened and I didn't leave, or I quote unquote allowed it, that meant I can't be who other people are telling me. That means I can't step up to the spotlight. That means I can't be brilliant, even though people say it. Like, it's crazy. It is not crazy. I have to get that word out of my vocabulary. Right. But it's eye-opening to realize those little things, those paper cuts, those things that happen in the workplace, as well as at home, as well as in these relationships, whether they be friendships or sexual partners. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, all that shit adds up. And if you don't, there's only so much we can compartmentalize and push it aside. Like, girl, we all know what our grandmas and our mamas was like, those states they come in. Like, right. How did that work out? You know, how did repressing our feelings really go as a generation or multiple? We now have the privilege of being able to get in touch with our feelings. And you know what? There's a lot of conversation about like what we owe our ancestors and what we owe our family lines. And right now, stepping up, like, you owe it to figure yourself out. You owe it to them. Like, they have worked their asses off to allow us to be in a space where we talk about therapy, to talk about moving up. And so doing that internal work is really a service to everyone who came before you. Girl, I've been on the soapbox today. But
no, this is good. We need to hear it. But before we go, tell us about Hooky Day, which is the fun part.
You mean not bury the lead of the thing that is happening?
Right.
No, it's exciting. So Hooky Day, Tuesday, October 20th, 2020, it is a professional skip day for mental health. So I am encouraging professionals across this country to take the day off and repurpose it for self-care. What does that mean? Stay in bed a little bit longer, turn that alarm off, go get that facial, or bring somebody to your house for a massage, or go get that picnic in the park with your friends before it gets too freaking cold for most places around this country. More than ever, we need this time. Like, what I realized as I look back, I was like, if I knew then what I knew now, like, I think I could have done a better job of preventing burnout and as simple things as like taking smaller breaks. By taking smaller breaks, it requires you to stop working for a period of time. So if you are not at that point where you're able to set your schedule or you're finding yourself working longer hours, it will take for a type of disruption like a Hooky Day in the middle of the week to change your behavior, to be like, oh, things can be different. Because we so often, as you said, that hamster wheel, we're on it all the time. And we're like, Monday through Friday, wah, wah, wah. And then we don't think we have any control to change it. So it's really interesting this year. There's this whole thing called a PTO bomb that companies are waiting for. Yes. So if you had any guilt about taking your time, like, employers want you to take your vacation time. They are scared shitless that everybody's about to take it around the holiday. So take this one day, do what you want. Tell a friend. You go to hookywellness.com. I'll give you you get a free Hooky Day guide, which helps you understand how to make the most out of your day. You'll also get some wellness discounts for our partners. There's 15% off of hammocks. You also have some percentages off of Black Travel Box, as well as Patchology for all your skincare needs. And then you also get a bonus Burnout Bingo, which is an early assessment, like, fun game that I created. Not fun game. It's an early assessment tool to understand if you're showing signs of a burnout episode to come. And then the Reclaim Framework, which helps you create your mindset of how to bring some balance back. Like, hookywellness.com. Go, you can download it. And even though it's Tuesday, October 20th, next week, Hooky Day is a concept that can be used any day. So even if you can't take it next Tuesday, just commit to take it within the next month. Get a Hooky Day on your schedule. So step 1, go to hookywellness.com and download your guide. Step 2, block your calendar, whether it be on the 20th or another day. Step 3, tell 3 friends. So when you register at hookywellness.com, you'll also get your own Hooky Day permission slip. Post it on social. We want to see. Tag Hooky Wellness. Use hashtag Hooky Day 2020. And we'll see what happens. I'm excited. We're going to do it again. We're keeping this going. It's a skip day. When do we need a reason to take a skip day? I don't know why I have to explain it so much.
No, I love it. I love it. And just so everybody knows, she's saying next week because we're recording on Wednesday, October 14th. So you should be hearing this on Sunday, October 18th. So you have a couple days to get your life together before a Hooky Day, but definitely take the day. I know I'm taking the day partially. I'm not taking the whole day, but I'm taking a lot of the day. I've blocked my calendar off for my Hooky Wellness time. Go to hookywellness.com and look for all the resources. Please, please, please take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. Take care of you. Because if you don't take care of you, how are you going to take care of everything else?
There you go. Here's a day. Girl, I'm set on this day. I'm like, take some time, please. Help yourself. Fix yourself. All hands on deck.
Word. And with that, we are going to wrap up this show. Hey, guys, if you need some help or advice about a specific situation, go to trillinba.com/coaching to schedule a 30-minute consultation with me to strategize and walk through your specific work situation. And i.e. work situations. I am not a therapist. Get you a therapist, though.
Get you a therapist.
In addition, you can always email me at ask@trillinba.com. I'm happy to either answer your question or connect you to the right person, like Erayna. If you have some wellness needs, I can connect you with her if I don't have the answer. And again, that's trillinba.com/coaching to schedule a 30-minute consultation with me. And all proceeds from my coaching practice goes to the production of this show to offset the cost of that. And ask@trillinba.com to submit your question or concern or listener letter. Or if you just want to email me and tell me how this show has helped you, that also just awesomely makes my day, you guys. I really appreciate all your notes. I get a number of them and I see every one of them. If you don't ask me a specific question, I might not email you back. But I really appreciate you. And I thank you for listening to this show. Erayna, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, because I clearly don't know much about the health and wellness space.
Girl, I'm learning too. This is all a journey. We in this together.
Yeah. So I love you so very much. Tell Joe I said, what's up? And until next time, you guys, keep it trill. The Trill MBA Show is a Fair World Corp. LLC production. Executive produced by Felicia and Rose Inuha. Sound design and editing by Chris Mann with Podshaper. Theme music is Kick Push by Ryan Little. Keep it trill every day, y'all.